Hello, my name is Denise Olasala, and this is my sister,
Rosie Olasala.
And we're the Olasala Sisters. Join us today for Lit Bible Study with the Olasala Sisters. So we are reading from the Bible, the New International Version. There's several different versions. That's the one we're reading from. We're going to be reading Matthew chapter 27, starting at verse 11. So the heading here is Jesus before Pilate. Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Yes, it is as you say," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the feast to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For he knew it was out of envy that they handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message: "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called Christ?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "Let his blood be on us and our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. All right, so that was Matthew chapter 27, verses 11 through 26. What are your thoughts on that, Rosie? I know you had some notes jotted down.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, let's rewind and unpack that a little bit. So Pontius Pilate, he is the governor, and this is during Roman times. So Rome is over where they are, and so he's the Roman governor overseeing everything. And so instead of just killing Jesus themselves, they were like, "Oh, let's bring Rome into it, have them do it. Yay. Because we don't want to get our hands dirty. So we're going to have Rome do it." So when Jesus is brought to Pontius Pilate, he actually had the opportunity to stop this crap. Okay. He could have stopped it. You have the power. You're a whole governor. Okay. A whole governor. And then right away in his gut, Pontius Pilate was just like, this doesn't smell right. It doesn't feel right. This feels weird. He's innocent. But instead of just stopping it right there and being like, "Okay, you guys are full of crap. Let that innocent man go. I don't know what weird things you have against him. I'm not here for this today." He was just like, "Okay, how can I not have to take a stand and somehow still get out of this?" So he's like, "Oh my God, I got a great idea." Okay. There's this murderer, Barabbas. Okay, I'm just going to ask the crowd. Okay. I'm just going to ask the crowd, and it's not just a crowd, it's a mob. See, the moment you have to ask a mob anything, that's not going to be the right answer. They're not thinking. The mob mentality. We literally call it mob mentality for a reason. They're out for blood. It's a mob. Okay, we're not like, "Oh, the gathered group of educated individuals who were there for our reading, and we're going to ask them for their opinion." No, we're like, let me ask this mob, do you want a murderer or Jesus? And of course, the mob, they were egged on, and they were like, "Oh, give us the murderer, but kill Jesus." What? So that didn't work out for Pontius Pilate. So he was like, okay. here's the murderer. He's free. Okay. And okay, flog Jesus. So that's like a whipping. What? Okay. And then afterwards, so he's just like, okay, it still feels wrong. And then, but everybody's like, do it, get him killed. And then out of nowhere, his wife sends him a whole note. And she's just like, sweetie, I've been having some weird dreams. Leave that innocent man alone. Now, if he was looking for confirmation that he was on, like his gut feeling was right, I feel like a whole note that says, leave that mess alone is what I needed to be like, I'm going to leave that mess alone. But Pontius was like, there goes Martha with her dreams. Even though 30 seconds ago, he was like, Lord, please just affirm that. Just let me know that my gut feeling is right. And then God was like, oh, here's a note from your wife. Yeah, you were right. No, not her and her dreams. Okay, let's keep going. Then we're like, okay, so he was like, oh, I don't want them to go against me because, I'm just the governor. They can go against me. So it was looking at your allies. So with him, he was just like, okay, the mob will go against him. The Jewish people will go against him. But he didn't realize, like, dude, your whole wife is your ally. She was there. She didn't have to send you that note. She could have sat and been like, ooh, I had a weird dream. You know what? I'll tell him about it when he comes home and we're discussing over dinner. But she was like, no, this is so important. I need to write this note. Slave, because I assume there was a slave involved. Run this note to my husband. You better be quick about it. Make sure he gets it in his hand right now. I don't care what he's doing. Get it in his hand. Okay? They were slaves. Indentured servant. It was a slave. And then, so she did what she was supposed to do. And he was just like, ugh, there goes Martha. I don't remember her. I don't know his wife's name, so I'm just calling her Martha. There goes Martha and her dreams again. No, dude, you missed the point. Okay. And then let me turn the page. Hold on. And then, so my other point that I wrote down was when you think you're standing alone, standing up for something. No. When you think you're alone and standing up for what's right, like you need to re-examine, because if you're really on the right side, then God's on your side. And what better ally to have than God? Like if you're like, Rosie, I'm going to give you 100 men who are on your side or God, I'd be like, I'll take God for 100, please. Sign me up for God, because God can do like anything. Anyway, so the last part I thought of was, so Pontius Pilate, he had the power and authority to say no and stop the mess here. And then that's exactly what would have happened. Yeah, maybe they would have had a little riot, but he has Roman soldiers who were trained from like a young age and whatever. They would have squashed that crap down so fast. And then also he's governing that region. So it's your responsibility to like make sure innocent people don't go to jail, to make sure the guilty are punished. Just one of your little jobs. And he was just like, well, them's the rules. They said they want him, so let me weirdly cave into peer pressure and just do what they said. And then he washed his hands of it. Like, no, dude, you're still responsible. We're not like, oh, well, you know what? He washed his hands. Okay. So he's not responsible. No, you're responsible. The mob is responsible. The ones who brought him here are responsible. But obviously, if we look at it in terms of the Bible, it was always going to happen. But if we look at it just in terms of like individual thinking, dude, you could have stopped it. Yeah, that's about all I got on that one. Hold on.
I agree with all those points. I think it was interesting to me to hear this part about the wife. So we've always heard about the washing of the hands. Pontius Pilate washed his hands, so he to absolve himself of it. So that is not new to me. But this version where the wife sends a note and she's like, leave him alone. That man has caused me a great deal of stress in a dream. You know, I think we always say mother knows best. And this time your wife knew best. Okay, you should have listened to her, buddy, but you didn't. And I think we all know it's very tough, though, of course, to stand up and do what's right in the face of anger and in the face of everybody else being against you, to say what's right in the face of death, in the face of, a possibility of bodily harm and all of this, in the face of losing face, but I guess that's sort of what we're called to do and what we should strive for, even in those moments, to try to be better, to do what's right. I'd like to think that we would have stood up for Jesus, but we saw this is a different, right? It gets a little bit different if you have to say, like, you would have been the one. What if it was you staring down the mob and everybody, like, and you got to let Jesus go free, It's tough, but I would hope that we would all protect Jesus in that moment and, stand up for what's right. But yeah, it's a tough story. I know even, we're not talking about this part, but how like even Peter, his bestie, denied him 3 times, because he didn't, and that's a different story, but just as Jesus was being arrested, Peter gets recognized and, it's the possibility of then he'll be arrested too and bad things will happen to him. And Peter was like, I don't know that man. So I think I'm not trying to be too tough on Pilate, because I get even Jesus's own friend, like that should be his brother, his disciple, also like failed him at that point too. But I guess it's just something we need to learn from. And then, of course, like you said, in the bigger context, it was sort of like supposed to happen so that then he could be crucified and then he could raise from the dead. And, but it just sucks a little. It really sucks that Pilate could have done something and he didn't. So that's certainly something to think about. But really the whole part of the wife and the note, I want to know more about this wife. Like, what was that dream? Was it Jesus? What did he say? Was he like, girl, get your husband, girl, because he's about to do some mess. And then she was like, I know he is, but what can I do? I can't tell him anything. He doesn't listen to me. He's over there, governing. And then, the person, Jesus, maybe in the dream was like, girl, get your husband. And she was like, I don't know. And then she's tossing, she's turning. Then she wakes up and then she's like, she tries to forget it at first. I'm just making this up. It didn't say any of this. She tries to forget it. And then it keeps going. She's just like, man, her aches. And when you haven't had a good night's sleep and you're walking around, you're creaking like an old floor, your back, your neck, your feet, your joints. And then it makes her remember that bad sleep she had. And she just decides, okay, let me go ahead and write this note real quick. Try to get my husband, get him together, sort him out. Ayo, leave that man alone. He caused me a great deal of stress in my dream. And then instead of husband being like, you know what, let me listen to my wife, he was just like, well, somebody bring me the soap. Bring me the water. We washing hands. But yeah, so those were any final thoughts. That I think that was pretty much our thoughts on it. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. This was Lit Bible Study with the Olasala Sisters. Be blessed.